The desert night was alive with whispers. The dunes stretched endlessly, silver under the moon, and the air carried the faint scent of spices and firewood. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a cluster of tents glowed softly, their lanterns like fallen stars scattered on the sand. Layla adjusted her shawl as she approached the camp. She had been traveling for days across the barren wasteland, guided only by a caravan map and her stubborn will. The winds had nearly swallowed her, and thirst had been a constant torment. Yet she had pushed forward, because she wasn't only a wanderer, she was a seeker of answers. Hidden in this desert, she believed, was the truth her family had guarded for generations. The largest tent stood at the center of the camp, striped in deep crimson and gold. The guards at the entrance let her pass when she showed them the silver medallion she wore. Their eyes followed her curiously, but they asked no questions. Inside, the air shifted warm, rich with incense and the faint crackle of a brazier. Her eyes adjusted slowly, and then she saw him. Seated on a low cushion, surrounded by rolled maps, silken fabrics, and an array of treasures, was a man with commanding presence. His robe was black with threads of gold, his shoulders broad, his dark hair falling loosely around his face. His eyes lifted to her, sharp as the desert hawk's. "You've come far, stranger," he said in a low voice, smooth but edged with suspicion. "What is it you seek in my tent?" Layla swallowed. His presence was overwhelming, but she steadied her breath. "I seek knowledge. And perhaps, protection." He rose slowly, his height towering, his movements unhurried, deliberate. She noticed the faint scar running across his jaw, a mark of battles past. "Knowledge is expensive," he said, circling her, as if measuring her spirit. "Protection even more so. Who sent you?" Her fingers tightened around the medallion. "My father. Before he died, he told me that only in the desert could I find the truth. And that I should trust the man with the black tent." She raised her chin, meeting his eyes. "So I am here." His lips curved in something that was not quite a smile. "Your father must have been a man of secrets. Tell me his name." She hesitated, then whispered, "Kareem of the Oasis." At once, the man's eyes darkened with recognition. He turned away, pacing slowly, as if old memories stirred with her words. Finally, he stopped and faced her again, his gaze unreadable. "Then you are his daughter. The bloodline lives." Layla felt her heartbeat quicken. "You knew him." "Better than you think," he said, his tone softer now, though no less intense. "He once saved my life. And I promised him a debt I could never repay." His eyes lingered on her, their weight heavy, magnetic. "Perhaps it is you who has come to collect it?" The silence between them grew thick, charged with something neither of them named. Outside, the desert wind rattled the tent flaps, but inside, the air seemed warmer, tighter, as if the tent itself held its breath. Layla's lips parted slightly. She wanted to ask 100 questions about her father, about the secrets buried in the dunes, but her voice caught in her throat. The man stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "You are not safe out there alone," he said quietly, his gaze locking on hers. "The desert devours those who wander without protection. If you remain here, you will be under my watch." "And the price," she whispered, her voice almost trembling. His eyes glinted, a flicker of fire and something more dangerous. "We will see. Secrets are never free." For a long moment, neither moved. The night pressed close, the silence broken only by the flicker of firelight against the silken walls. Layla felt as though she had stepped into a story older than time itself, a story written in sand, shadows, and secrets. Somewhere deep in her chest, fear mingled with a spark of something else. Anticipation. The desert tent, she realized, did not just hold answers. It held temptation. The fire in the brazier hissed softly, filling the tent with the scent of cedar and spice. Layla sat on a cushion now, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She could still feel his presence lingering near, even though he had stepped back to pour dark liquid into two carved cups. He moved with the kind of confidence that made her nerves restless. Everything about him, his calm strength, his deliberate silence, was a puzzle wrapped in authority. He returned and set a cup before her. Drink. The desert is harsh on the body. This will warm you. She hesitated, then lifted it to her lips. The taste was sharp, sweet, and heavy with herbs. It burned slightly, but then spread warmth down her throat, easing the tightness in her chest. Tell me, he said at last, sitting across from her, his elbows resting on his knees. Why did Kareem send you here? What truth was worth this journey across the sands? Layla lowered her eyes to the rim of the cup. He said, he had guarded a secret. One too dangerous to keep, but too precious to destroy. He wanted me to find you. To learn from you. Her voice wavered, then steadied. He said my life would change once I stepped into your tent. The man's gaze sharpened. And already, has it? Her breath caught. She didn't know how to answer. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken things. Finally, she forced herself to meet his eyes. Who are you to my father? He leaned back, shadows flickering across his face. Your father was a wise man. And a gambler of fate. Once, long ago, he carried something across these deserts, something many sought to steal. I helped him. He saved my life in return. And together, we buried what others could not be allowed to find. What was it? She whispered. His lips curved slightly, but it was not amusement, it was warning. The less you know, the longer you live. But the blood in your veins, it tells me the time for secrets is ending. Layla shivered, not from cold, but from the strange weight in his words. Then why bring me here? Why not let the secret die with my father? Because, he said, his voice low and certain, the desert never forgets. What is buried always rises again. And when it does, someone must be ready to claim it. Or to guard it. Her heart thudded in her chest. She felt both chosen and trapped. He studied her quietly, and then, as if breaking the tension, he reached for the brazier with iron tongs, adjusting the burning wood. The sparks leapt up, casting golden light over his face. For a brief moment, his eyes softened, almost human against the harshness of the desert. You remind me of him, he murmured. That same fire in your gaze. That same stubbornness. She didn't know whether to feel proud or unsettled. And you, she said cautiously, you owe him a debt. Yes. His gaze locked on hers, steady, unyielding. A debt paid not in coin, but in loyalty. Which means now, by his blood, my loyalty extends to you. The words sent a strange flutter through her. Protection, yes, but also something far more binding. She sensed that once she accepted, she could never step back into her old life. Why do I feel, she said softly, that there is more you are not telling me? He tilted his head slightly, as if appreciating her boldness. Because there is. And because you are not ready. Not yet. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. But soon. The tent seemed smaller now, the air warmer, the silence louder. Layla felt her pulse quicken. His nearness was not just intimidating, it was magnetic, as if the very air bent toward him. She wanted to pull away, to keep her distance, but at the same time, part of her longed to know what secrets lay not only in his words but in his presence. At last, he rose, breaking the moment. His tall frame loomed against the lantern glow. Rest now. Tomorrow, the desert will demand more of you than tonight ever could. She opened her mouth to protest, to demand answers, but something in his tone silenced her. He moved toward the entrance, then paused. Without turning, he said, "Do not leave this tent, Layla. Outside, the desert has ears." And then he was gone, leaving her alone with the flickering fire, the taste of herbs still on her lips, and 1,000 questions burning hotter than the sands at noon. Layla lay back on the cushions, staring at the silken ceiling above. Her father's secret was real. This man, this mysterious guardian, was now bound to her fate. But even more unsettling was the thought she couldn't shake: in the heart of the desert tent, she had begun to lose more than her fear. She was losing herself to curiosity, and to him. The desert morning came with a blaze of gold. Heat poured across the dunes like molten fire, and even the shadows inside the tent seemed to shimmer with it. Layla stirred awake, the silk cushions soft beneath her, the faint smell of spice still lingering in the air. For a moment she thought she was still dreaming, until the low murmur of voices outside reminded her that this was no dream at all. She pushed the curtain aside just enough to glimpse the camp. Men moved briskly, tightening ropes, checking weapons, sharpening curved blades that caught the sun in dazzling arcs. Horses stamped the sand, restless. Something was wrong. Before she could step out, he appeared. The man from the night before, his black robe now belted with leather, a sword at his side. His eyes found hers immediately, sharp and commanding. "You're awake," he said. His voice was calm, but beneath it she heard tension, like a string pulled too tight. "What's happening?" she asked, rising to her feet. He crossed the space between them in 2 long strides, pulling the tent flap closed behind him. "Raiders," he said simply. "Scouts spotted them at dawn. They've been hunting this camp for weeks, waiting for weakness. Today they've chosen to strike." Layla's heart thudded. "Raiders? Why?" "For coin, for power, for blood," he replied. His gaze softened slightly as he studied her face. "And for the secret your father carried." Her breath caught. "They know." "Perhaps not the full truth," he said. "But they know enough. And if they take you, they will wring the rest from you." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "That is why you must stay hidden." But Layla shook her head. "No, I will not cower while others fight for me." "My father would never." "Your father," he interrupted, his voice low and firm, "trusted me to guard what he left behind. That includes you. If you step outside, you endanger more than yourself." The silence that followed was heavy. She wanted to argue, but the intensity in his eyes silenced her. Still, she lifted her chin stubbornly. "Then tell me, at least, what it is they want. What did my father leave in this desert?" He hesitated. For the first time, she saw uncertainty flicker across his strong features. Finally, he said, "A map. Not just any map, a guide to the hidden wells beneath the dunes. Whoever controls them controls life itself. Armies, empires, all thirst for it. Your father kept it from their hands. Layla's knees weakened as the weight of the revelation sank in. Water more precious than gold, more powerful than any weapon. No wonder men were willing to kill for it. "Where is it now?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out, his fingers brushing against her wrist, firm but not harsh. Some truths must remain buried. For now. His eyes burned into hers. "Trust me, Layla." Her pulse quickened at his touch. It was more than reassurance, it was a bond, silent yet undeniable. She wanted to resist, to demand more, but her words dissolved when the first cry rang out from beyond the tent. A horn, sharp and urgent. The camp erupted into motion. Shouts, the clash of steel, the pounding of hooves. He released her wrist, drawing his sword in a fluid motion. "Stay here," he ordered, his voice like steel. "No matter what you hear." And then he was gone, pushing through the flap into chaos. Layla stood frozen, every instinct screaming to follow, to see, to fight. But his command held her still. The sounds outside were terrifying, metal striking metal, horses screaming, men calling orders. Her chest tightened with fear, but beneath it was something hotter, more dangerous, the need to know if he would return. Minutes felt like hours. The tent walls trembled as figures ran past. Once, a shadow lingered too close, and Layla grabbed the nearest object, a bronze lamp, ready to strike. But the shadow moved on. At last, the tent flap tore open. He stepped inside, his sword streaked with sand and blood, his chest rising hard with breath. His robe was cut at the shoulder, revealing a line of red, but his eyes burned with fierce light. "They won't breach the camp today," he said, voice rough but steady. "But they will return. Stronger." Layla rushed forward before she could think, her hands hovering near his wound. "You're hurt." "It is nothing," he said, though his jaw tightened. Her fingers brushed his skin, warm and damp with blood. "It is not nothing," she whispered. He looked down at her, the space between them charged with the same intensity as the night before. The noise outside faded, the whole world shrinking to the circle of firelight and the pulse of two hearts. And in that moment, Layla realized that the desert had already bound her to him through danger, through secrets, through something neither of them yet dared to name. The camp smoldered with the aftermath of battle. Ash from burning torches still drifted in the hot air, and the sand was stained dark where men had fallen. The survivors moved quietly now, gathering supplies, tending to the wounded, whispering of what would come next. Layla stood at the entrance of the black tent, watching the horizon. The dunes stretched endlessly, calm and deceptive, hiding the violence they had just endured. Somewhere out there, the raiders regrouped, sharpening their blades, planning their return. Behind her, he spoke. "We cannot remain here." She turned. He was tightening the strap over his wounded shoulder, ignoring the cut as if it were nothing more than a scratch. His sword leaned against the wall, still within reach. "You need rest," she said firmly. He shook his head. "What I need is distance. The raiders will come again, and next time they will bring numbers we cannot match." His eyes flicked to her, steady, unwavering. "If you stay in this camp, you will not survive." A chill ran through her despite the heat. "Then where will we go?" His silence stretched, and then he said, "To the place your father and I swore never to return." "Where the map was hidden." Layla's breath caught. "The wells." He did not answer directly, but his gaze told her enough. The truth she had sought was no longer a distant mystery, it was about to become her path. By nightfall, the decision was made. He gathered only what they could carry: water skins, dried dates, a lamp, blankets. The rest would slow them down. The other men of the camp bowed their heads as he mounted his horse and helped Layla climb behind him. She felt the ripple of respect in their silence. He was no ordinary man in their eyes. As they rode away from the glow of the campfires, the desert swallowed them whole. The wind hissed over the dunes, the stars shone mercilessly above, and the world seemed to shrink to the rhythm of hooves and the steady rise and fall of his breath. Hours passed before he slowed the horse and guided it into a narrow hollow between two high ridges. Here the wind softened, and the sand lay smooth as silk. He dismounted first, then turned and offered his hand to her. Layla hesitated before placing her palm in his. His grip was strong, warm, grounding. When her feet touched the sand, he did not release her immediately, and for a heartbeat longer than necessary, their hands remained joined. He finally let go and began to unroll the blankets, setting them beneath the shelter of the ridge. The horse was tied nearby, its soft breaths filling the silence. "You should rest," he said quietly. Layla sank onto the blanket, drawing her shawl closer. But rest was impossible. Her thoughts circled endlessly: the raid, the blood, the revelation of the map. And him. Always him. "You never told me your name," she said suddenly. He paused, looking at her from across the fire he had just lit. The flames painted his features in gold and shadow. For a long time, he said nothing, and she wondered if he would ignore her question. At last, he spoke. "Rashid." The name fit him: strong, unyielding, edged with something dangerous. She whispered it softly, testing it on her tongue. "Rashid." His gaze lingered on her as if the sound of his own name from her lips unsettled him. Then he looked away, feeding another branch to the flames. "You should not grow too close to me," he said after a moment, his voice low, almost rough. "This desert devours attachments as quickly as it devours water." But Layla shook her head. "It is too late for that. My father trusted you. And now my life is tied to yours." Rashid's jaw tightened, but he did not argue. The fire cracked between them, casting sparks into the night sky. The silence stretched, but it was not empty: it was charged, alive, full of words neither dared to speak. At last, Layla lay back on the blanket, staring up at the endless stars. The desert sky was vast, eternal, but all she could think of was the man seated beside the fire. The way his presence steadied her fear. The way his name still lingered in her mind like a secret. And as the night deepened, she realized something unsettling: the more the desert threatened to take from her, the more she longed to hold on to him. Tomorrow, the journey to the hidden wells would begin. But tonight, in the quiet hollow between the dunes, Layla knew the real danger was not the raiders, nor the desert. It was the secret growing between her and Rashid, one neither of them could bury. The desert at dawn was a cruel beauty. The sand glowed pale pink under the rising sun, and the horizon seemed endless, promising both wonder and death. Layla sat astride the horse behind Rashid, her arms wrapped around his waist for balance. The warmth of his body against hers was the only comfort in a world otherwise vast and merciless. They had left the hollow hours ago, riding steadily across dunes that shifted under hoof-like waves. The wind bit at Layla's cheeks, drying her lips and filling her hair with grit. She had traveled far to reach him, but now, on this journey deeper into the desert, she realized she had never truly known hardship until now. "Drink," Rashid said, handing her a water skin without slowing the pace. His voice was steady, but she could hear the strain in it. The desert tested even him. She obeyed, letting the cool liquid soothe her throat, then returned the skin. Her hands brushed his as she did, and for a fleeting second, neither pulled away. "Rashid," she said softly, "how much farther to the wells?" He did not answer at once. His gaze swept the horizon, cautious, calculating. 2 days, if the winds favor us. 3, if they turn. And if the raiders follow. His shoulders tensed beneath her grip. They will follow. The question is only whether they catch us before we reach the truth. Layla swallowed hard. Fear tightened her chest, but another feeling rose with it: determination. Then we must be faster. For the rest of the morning, they rode in silence, broken only by the groan of leather and the horses' steady breaths. By midday, the heat pressed down like a weight. Rashid finally guided them into the shadow of a crumbling ruin half buried in the sand. Pillars jutted upward like broken teeth, the remains of some ancient desert city lost to time. They dismounted, the horse grateful for the pause. Rashid spread the blanket and urged Layla to sit. "Rest," he said firmly. "The desert does not forgive those who push without pause." She sank down, exhausted, but her curiosity burned brighter than her fatigue. "Rashid," she said, watching him as he checked the horse's hooves, "why did my father trust you with the map? Why not keep it for himself?" He stilled. For a moment, she thought he might ignore her. Then he returned to the fire pit and crouched low, gathering bits of dry brush. His voice was low when he finally spoke. "Because your father was hunted. Enemies circled him like vultures. If he kept the map, they would have killed him for it. So he entrusted it to me, believing I could protect it until the time came." His eyes lifted to hers, dark and unreadable. "And that time has come, Layla. Because now they hunt you." Her chest tightened. "But why me? I have no knowledge, no power." "You are Kareem's blood," Rashid said simply. "And blood carries legacy. Whether you believe it or not, the map belongs to you as much as it belonged to him. That is why they will not stop." The weight of his words pressed on her like the sun above. She wanted to shrink beneath it, but instead she lifted her chin. "Then I must learn. I will not let my father's sacrifice or yours be wasted." A flicker of something crossed Rashid's face: approval, maybe even pride. He reached across the small space between them, his fingers brushing her hand. His touch was warm, steadying. "You are stronger than you know," he murmured. Her heart quickened. The world around them, ruins, sand, silence, seemed to fade, leaving only the intensity of his gaze. For the first time, she saw not just the guardian bound by loyalty, but the man beneath it. A man scarred by battles, hardened by secrets, yet still carrying honor like a blade. Before she could speak, a sound shattered the fragile moment. A distant horn, faint but unmistakable. Layla stiffened. Rashid's expression hardened instantly. He rose, scanning the horizon. "They are closer than I hoped." Layla stood beside him, her pulse racing. "What do we do?" He placed a hand on her shoulder, firm but not harsh. "We move. Now." Within minutes, they were riding again, the ruins vanishing behind them. The wind rose, stinging their faces, carrying the faint echo of pursuit. As the sun began to sink, painting the desert in gold and blood red, Layla clung tighter to Rashid. Fear pressed against her, but so did something else: an unshakable certainty. Whatever awaited at the hidden wells, she would face it. Not alone. With him. And as the stars began to pierce the darkening sky, she realized a truth more dangerous than any map: the desert was not only testing her will to survive. It was testing her heart. The desert night was merciless. The stars burned like white fire in the sky, offering no comfort, only silence. Layla leaned into Rashid's back as the horse pushed forward, hooves sinking deep into the sand. Every sound felt sharper in the darkness: the creak of leather, the rush of wind, the faint echo of horns behind them. "They are closer," Layla whispered. Rashid's voice was calm, though his body was taut with focus. "Yes. But we are closer still. To the wells." He nodded once, the motion brief. "By dawn, if fortune favors us." Layla tightened her arms around him. The pursuit pressed against her like a shadow, but so did the certainty that Rashid was her shield. His presence was unshakable, his every movement guided by instinct honed in battles she could only imagine. The horse slowed as they approached a jagged outcrop of stone rising from the dunes. Rashid dismounted, helping her down with steady hands. His touch lingered just a moment longer than necessary, sending a shiver through her despite the heat of the desert. "We rest here," he said. "Only for an hour. The horse must breathe, and so must you." Layla wanted to protest, but exhaustion silenced her. She sank onto the sand, drawing her shawl close, while Rashid walked the perimeter, scanning the horizon with hawk-like vigilance. His silhouette against the stars was sharp, commanding, untouchable. Yet when he returned and sat beside her, the weight of his nearness softened the edges of her fear. "Rashid," she murmured, "do you ever tire of this? Always fighting, always guarding, never resting." For a long time he did not answer. Then he said quietly, "A man does not tire of what he was born to do. But sometimes, he wonders what it would be like, if he chose differently." His words surprised her. She turned to face him, her heart quickening. "And what would you choose?" He met her gaze, the fire of the stars reflected in his dark eyes. "That is a dangerous question, Layla." But she held his eyes, refusing to yield. "Tell me." The silence between them grew heavy, charged. At last, he leaned slightly closer, his voice low, almost a whisper. "If I were not bound by debts, by promises, by the blood of old battles, perhaps I would choose something simpler. Something forbidden." Layla's breath caught. She understood without needing the words spoken. Forbidden. Her pulse raced, and the air around them seemed to thrum with it. But before either could move closer, the night was split by a sound: hooves pounding the sand, shouts carried on the wind. Rashid rose in an instant, pulling her to her feet. "They've found us." Her stomach dropped. In the distance, torches glimmered like fireflies, drawing nearer. "Come," he commanded, lifting her onto the horse with practiced strength. He mounted behind her, and the animal lunged forward into the dunes. The chase was no longer distant, it was upon them. The raiders shouted, their horses gaining ground. Arrows hissed through the air, one striking the sand just feet from their path. Layla clung to Rashid, her heart hammering. "They'll catch us," she cried. "Not if I can help it." His voice was steel, but she felt the raw determination beneath it. He guided the horse into a narrow canyon where the dunes rose like walls on either side. The sound of pursuit echoed, magnified, but the raiders could not easily surround them here. The horse stumbled once on loose stone, nearly unseating them, but Rashid's grip was iron. "Hold on," he ordered, his arm braced protectively around her. At last, the canyon opened into a wide basin. And there, shimmering faintly in the moonlight, Layla saw its stone markers rising from the sand, carved with ancient symbols. Between them lay darkness that was not shadow but an opening, a passage leading downward. "The wells," she whispered. Rashid pulled the horse to a halt, his chest rising hard with breath. His eyes locked on the entrance, then shifted back to the torches blazing behind them. The raiders were minutes away. He leapt down, pulling her with him. "Inside," he ordered, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "But you go." His hand pressed firmly against her back, urging her toward the passage. "I will hold them." Her heart twisted. The thought of leaving him behind struck her like a blade. "No. Not alone. If you stay, I stay." For the first time, his composure faltered. His eyes burned with something more than command, something raw, unguarded. "Layla," he said her name like it was both a warning and a plea. The torches grew brighter. The shouts echoed louder. The desert was closing in. And in that moment, between danger and desire, Layla knew, the secret of the wells was no longer the only secret at stake. The greater secret was what bound her to Rashid. The basin was alive with fire and fury. Torches bobbed like stars torn from the heavens, the raiders shouting as they poured into the canyon. Their horses thundered across the sand, the ground trembling under their weight. Layla stood frozen at the mouth of the passage, the ancient stones looming around her. Rashid stepped in front of her, his sword drawn, his silhouette sharp against the glow of approaching flames. "Inside," he commanded again, his voice unyielding. But Layla shook her head, her fear swallowed by something stronger. "No. If you fight, I fight." His jaw tightened, but there was no time to argue. The first of the raiders charged, a blade flashing in the firelight. Rashid met him with a strike so fast it was a blur, steel clashing against steel. Sparks flew. The raider fell. Another came, and Rashid turned, his movements fluid, precise, each strike driven by years of battle. Layla pressed her back against the stone marker, her heart hammering. She wanted to run, but her eyes could not leave him. The desert had shaped him into a weapon, yes, but beneath the sharp edges was a man fighting not only for duty but for her. Arrows hissed past. One struck the stone just inches above her head. Layla gasped, then snatched the fallen weapon of a raider who had stumbled too close. The blade was heavy, awkward in her grip, but she lifted it anyway. Rashid turned just in time to see her. For a moment, even in the chaos, his eyes locked on hers. Shock, then pride. "Stay close," he barked, then spun to block another strike. Together, they moved. Rashid fought with power and precision, and Layla, though untrained, stood at his side, her blade clumsy but her spirit fierce. Every time she thought fear might swallow her, she remembered her father's words, "Trust the man with the black tent," and she drew strength from Rashid's presence. But the raiders were endless. For every one who fell, two more seemed to appear, their torches painting the desert red and gold. "We cannot hold them," Rashid growled between strikes. His arm bled from a new cut, but his grip never faltered. "Then we must go inside," Layla said, her voice trembling but resolute. She glanced at the passage behind them, the dark mouth of the wells. "That's what they want, isn't it? If we reach it first, perhaps we can turn the desert itself against them." Rashid's eyes flicked to the passage, then back to her. For a moment, hesitation held him, then he nodded once. He seized her hand, strong and warm, pulling her into the opening. The air inside was cool, heavy with the scent of stone and age. Their footsteps echoed as they descended into darkness, the shouts of the raiders echoing behind them. The passage widened into a vast chamber. And there it was, an underground lake, its waters glowing faintly in the dim light of crystals embedded in the walls. The hidden wells. Life itself, sleeping beneath the desert. Layla gasped. It's real. Rashid's face was shadowed, but awe flickered across his features. Your father and I swore to keep this secret safe. But now it lies in your hands. Before she could answer, the raiders stormed into the chamber. Their leader, a tall man with a scarred face, sneered as his torchlight fell across the water. So it is true. His eyes gleamed with greed. The desert's heart belongs to me. Rashid stepped forward, sword raised. It belongs to no man. The fight that followed was brutal. Steel rang against stone, the chamber echoing with shouts and the clash of blades. Rashid fought like the desert storm itself, but he was outnumbered, his strength stretched thin. Layla's chest burned with fear. If he fell, all would be lost. And then she remembered the medallion at her neck, the symbol her father had pressed into her palm before he died. She tore it free and raised it high. Stop, she cried, her voice echoing through the chamber. By Kareem's blood, this place is sealed. The raiders hesitated, eyes drawn to the medallion. Even Rashid paused, his gaze flicking to her. The leader snarled, but uncertainty rippled through his men. The desert does not serve greed, Layla continued, her voice steadying with each word. These wells will not be yours. They will be guarded, as my father willed, as Rashid vowed. Leave now, or the desert will claim you. The silence stretched. Then, one by one, the raiders began to retreat, fear outweighing hunger. Their leader cursed, but when his men pulled back, he had no choice but to follow. At last, the chamber was silent once more, save for the soft lapping of the underground water. Layla's knees weakened, and she nearly collapsed until Rashid caught her. His arm wrapped around her, steady and protective. For a moment, neither spoke, their breaths ragged in the stillness. You were your father's daughter tonight, he said quietly, pride roughening his voice. Layla looked up at him, her eyes shining. And you were more than my father's guardian. The distance between them closed, not with words, but with the weight of all they had endured. In the heart of the desert's secret, surrounded by water that could change empires, Layla found the only truth she truly cared about. Not the wells. Not the map. Not the legacy. Rashid. And in his eyes, burning with the same unspoken truth, she saw that the desert had not devoured them after all. It had given them something rarer than water. It had given them each other.